Welcome, METATOPIANs. This is the panel on managing your work while the world is chaos. And we were very clever people and planned it for just this part of the world because everybody's been experiencing this past week. My name is Beth Rimmels. My day job is marketing, but I've also been a freelance game designer going back longer than I want to admit. And at one point in my career, I was also a life coach. So hence a little bit of my familiarity with this topic and other things, mental health and coping. And my wonderful co-panelists, I will let them do their own introductions, but Jaym Gates and Nicole Lindroos.
Go, Jaym.
Okay. So I'm Jaym Gates. I'm a lot of things. I'm a professional editor. Well, the other day I was trying to write a bio, and I'm like, I'm getting too many things here that I do. I have to start paring this down.
Yeah.
I'm a professional editor, writer, and game designer for things that actually pertain to the geeky side of things. I also work in tech as an editor and project manager, so I've got a few things going on there. Currently, I am the editorial director for Nasaba Press, which is the fiction line for Nicole's Green Ronin. I also do some occasional writing for RPGs, both for Green Ronin and other companies. And I have edited a bunch of RPGs in the science fiction and publishing world as well, and a few for the military strategy world as well. So.
I am Nicole Lindroos. I am the general manager for Green Ronin Publishing, celebrating our 20th anniversary in 2020. Who thought that was a good idea? And mostly I have done like all the jobs in gaming. So you name it, I have done a stint at it over the last 30 years. Pretty much do office and project management and ops now for Green Ronin. So that's me.
And the fact that all three of us have worn lots of different hats, whether in the field or outside of the field, I think has also really helped with this topic because we've experienced all kinds of challenges in all kinds of arenas. But, people have this fallacy about game design, which is, oh, I love to play games, so I shall become a game designer and everybody will love my games and I will make a lot of money and I get to just play every day and have fun. That's not how it works.
It's still a job.
It is still a job. Some days it's a very tough job for any number of reasons. And when you have a deadline, you still have to get shit done, no matter what else is going on in the world. And 2020 has been especially challenging for people. But it's not just that. It could be personal things with, family members having crises or, scandals for a company that you freelanced 4 or 5 years ago, but you had nothing to do with it, but your name still gets dragged around because you were publicly a face or who knows whatever kinds of chaos is going on. So you have to get things done. And like I said, this year, that is especially a challenge for people. So we thought it was a good idea to address a little bit of how do you keep going and how do you get things done when all you want to do is curl up in a ball and just, pet your cat, which am I the only one who's been there for that? I don't think so.
My dog has gotten very used to, either my partner or me just being like, okay, you're cuddling us now. This is happening right now.
Yeah, the rabbit's not as pliable in that regard. Really not interested in cuddling. So shall we talk about some specific strategies, or where do we want to start?
Yeah, let's actually start with some specific strategies because we bounced a few around in our pre-panel discussion.
I was just going to say, I know that I am, of the three of us, the glutton for punishment. We went over that a little bit, where I was like, oh yeah, the right way to motivate me out of my funk is to remind myself that I'm not on the Eastern Front. Suck it up, Buttercup. It could be worse. That's not a challenge to the universe or anything, but
I try really hard not to challenge the universe.
But I do like find, and I think that in therapeutic terms, this is more accurately presented as a posture or attitude of gratefulness, right? Appreciating what you have going on, even if it's a little positive thing. And in my case, it's that I'm not on the Eastern Front, or whatever my measure is for that day. You know, literally happy we have electricity. I can say that I'm really happy that we have hot water. Like sometimes that is the thing, but boy, it doesn't take much to, to make you feel like we had a power outage, right? We had a power outage, and boy, I could have been like exceptionally whiny about it, except that I wasn't in Oklahoma, where our colleague Owen Stevens was living, where they were some people are still out of power. They had an ice storm. I was out of power for 6 hours or something.
Well, actually,
So
and you two were dealing with wildfires, not that long ago, and all the challenges of that.
indeed, I think the Gamma people would like me to be more focused on Gamma stuff. We were literally having our strategy retreat, which was virtual, while my mom was telling me that even though she was in the you should really be prepared to leave evacuation zone for the fires, that she wasn't really taking it very seriously. So
Yeah, and for me, so I was actually down in Vancouver when that started. So I drove back because my mom lives down there, and since she lives by herself, I've been going down and seeing her fairly regularly, just to help her out and stuff. But I was down there when the fires started, and I got to drive back to Seattle 3 hours in that smoke. And for me, the fires are a little extra because a number of years ago, one of the first really big California, like for those who live on the West Coast, there's in the last 8 or 9 years, the fire has changed from the kind of fire that I grew up with, where it's like, okay, sure, it's fire, but it's fine. It might cause some inconvenience. To in the last 8 years, they've turned into these monsters that you don't survive them. You get out, you move, you get out of there with everything you can as fast as you can. And one of the first of those actually started half a mile from the place I grew up. And so I got involved with dealing with the response to that and everything. So for me, whenever there's one of these really big fires, I'm equal parts super stressed out and super just engaged with how do you respond to this? How do you deal with it? So my freelance work, it's like, you just go right over there. I don't have brain pan for this right now. So I think you're muted, Beth. You are still muted.
We lost you. Oh noes. Well, Jaym, you strike me as a person who throws yourself into work. Now, whatever your work, because you have 17 things you're always working on. It strikes me though that is one of the ways that you manage, which isn't always the case for everybody.
Yeah, work is definitely what I use to cope. I actually was talking to a therapist last year, and he called me out on it and was like, yeah, you use work as a coping mechanism. And it's true, because for me, if I'm not busy doing something, my mind just kind of turns on itself, and I get into this thing where I can't sleep, I can't think, I can't do anything. And so because I have ADHD, for me, the way to deal with stress and panic is more lists, more things to do. Okay, I don't have to sit and think about what I'm going to be doing because I have this, this, and this that I have to do today. And, that keeps me going. And so having that, especially, this year is actually not the worst year for me. There have been some things that have been super, awful and stressful about it, but last year was actually way worse, and for me, a much larger challenge because I was in just excruciating physical pain due to a muscle spasm that we couldn't find the cause of. And that actually was the bigger challenge for me, because it wasn't that there was outside stress, it was my body was physically failing me. And so I had to learn how to be more flexible in it. Of I can't just push through this. I have to actually be smart about this and work on ways that I can manage and work around this rather than just, okay, I'm going to push myself harder because that's what I've always done.
I think that many, I'm sorry, Beth, are you back?
Nope.
Nope.
Well, I understood that.
That's right. I saw what that was.
I can read lips. Nope.
So sorry, Beth. This is where our colleague.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay. Evidently,
Yes.
my microphone just decided it needed to be rebooted. Don't ask me why.
Well, welcome back.
2020.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And this is the bear system. But when we're one of the things that you said about dealing with the wildfires and everything else made me want to mention. Hopefully, you have freelance or deadlines or whatever that you can shuffle, or an understanding project manager or something. But what do you do when you can't? Like, for example, if, say, you're fulfilling a Kickstarter and the wildfires are happening and you're trying to explain to people, and, there's always those few people who just aren't listening.
I mean, there comes a point where it doesn't matter whether they want to hear it or not. And this is something that I've gotten way better about in the last few years, is that, and, I love game fans. I love that we have this atmosphere where creators are super accessible and engage with the fans a lot. But it's also about this entitlement. And there's an entitlement that, oh, I bought a thing from you, therefore you need to put everything in your life on hold to give me this thing immediately. And that's not, that doesn't work that way. And so there are times that you just have to say, I'm sorry, I'm doing the best I can. I cannot physically give you this right now, either because I've been evacuated from my house, or I'm sick, or I have, for me, sometimes I have day job stuff. Mm-hmm. And I will go to the utmost of my ability to meet my deadlines and to turn things in or over when necessary. But if there's something that I physically cannot do this, I will stand my ground and say, I have done the best I can. I actually had an issue a few years ago where I was working 5 days a week, 12 hours a day on a variable schedule. My grandfather had a heart attack, and I had something else, a couple of other things going on at the time, and I had a deadline for Green Ronin, actually, and I was just like, I can't. I physically cannot. Got an extension from it because Steve Kinson is amazing. And I ended up writing 8,000 words of an adventure in one day to meet that extended deadline. Like, wow. I have established that I will go to extreme lengths to get something done. So I've earned the benefit of the doubt, I think. But it's communication. I can't. And here's why. You know that I try to do my best, but I can't do this anymore. So as long as you communicate, I think that there's that. But it's also on the people receiving that communication to act in good faith as well.
So prioritizing the big stuff, I think, is also what it comes down to. Like, a lot of us don't, in our day-to-day life, we get hung up on some small things. One guy is causing a problem on the Kickstarter, and he's really loud, and he's posting all the time. But it's one guy, right? Like, so what's helped me this year, being in COVID times, being really isolated, not having the usual supports that we've come to rely on. Like, I was doing volunteering to get out of the mindset and just like physically remove myself from doing work or being engaged in some stuff that was just unproductive. And without that, I've had to employ some strategies like reassessing what's the big stuff. Mm-hmm. Is this really the big stuff? No. The big thing is I have to file this paperwork for this insurance claim. That's big. It's also daunting. It's also like, how can I even be thinking about this right now? It has to be done. There's nobody who's going to give me an extension on that deadline. Well, then I have to deal. I have to,
So what do you do if executive dysfunction kicks in and is one of your issues?
I personally have set a random middle of the day alarm that goes off every day on my phone. It's roughly the middle of the day. I picked 1:35 in the afternoon. So at 1:35, my phone goes off for no other reason than to remind me that it is the middle of the day, that I have a certain number of hours left to get stuff done, and maybe I've been screwing around. Maybe I couldn't bear to get out of bed this morning. I haven't eaten anything yet. Whatever it is that's keeping me from accomplishing the tasks on my list. It's not for anything. It doesn't say, well, I have trouble being told what to do. So I know this is a shock to you ladies, but but so I found that just in my case, the random reminder that it's the middle of the day was exactly the kind of reset I needed, like to refocus my attention, where a reminder that says, call the insurance company is not going to do it. That's like, it just reminds me of that thing that I'm dreading, that I've been working up to, that I don't want to have to do. It's like, content warning, I guess. Oh, remember you have that big thing that is really troubling you. Don't forget that. That's I don't find personally that those are helpful reminders, but the more general, okay, now it's time to get on track kind of reminder really did it for me. I know some people use the Pomodoro. That's more for writers, I think, but it's also an effective technique.
What's the Pomodoro? That I'm not familiar with that name.
Jaym, do you want to? I feel like I've been talking, so.
Basically, it's a timer that sets 15-minute sprints for you, and you do 15 minutes of writing, and then you have a break. So it keeps you focused and gives you small digestible chunks. It's not something that works particularly well for me, just because I self-regulate in a very different way, but.
Well, ADHD doesn't need any like frequent breakups in work, right?
Yeah. I'm either hyper-focused or not at all focused. What helps for me is having, like, I use a paper planner still. So this is actually my weekly planner. I get less now that it's more popular with the bullet journals and everything, but I used to get a lot of grief for using a paper planner, but what really helps for me is that I have a list of things that I need to do, and that's everything that I need to do. All the projects that I have going, broken down into tasks, deadlines if they're applicable, and then I have a weekly list broken down by day, and these are the things that I need to get done today. And so what I try and do, because, I do have some executive dysfunction issues, is things that are really high cost for me, like making phone calls or, dealing with errands, things like that. I bunch those all into one day. And, I don't really do much, the rest of the day. Now that I have a day job, I have days that are very meeting heavy. And so I'll stack everything on those days where it's like, I already have to, be made up and people tolerable. I was going to say people friendly, and that doesn't really work for me.
Not like, stabbing people day.
Exactly.
Not stabbing people day, yeah.
There's a bar, I will clear that bar, but it's not a very high one. So, if I have freelance meetings or whatever, I'll try and stack those on the same day as well, and then leave the other days for me to just get work done, because then I don't have that breaking my day up.
Yeah, I didn't know I knew the technique you were talking about before, but I didn't know as the Pomodoro technique. The other technique that works for me when it comes to trying to bypass the executive dysfunction or just procrastinate the hell out of a thing is the eat your frog, which is just the thing is I fall off the wagon with that one so often, but when I do it, it really works, which is basically do whatever is the thing you want to do the least first thing in the morning and get out of the way. And for those who don't know, the name comes from a Mark Twain quote where he says, when you start the day eating the first thing, eating a frog, everything is easier after that, or something to that effect. But it's become a productivity technique for prioritize your day with the hardest thing first, get it over with. Because otherwise you will spend all day procrastinating if you put other times of the day. So, and like I said, I just need to do it. Yeah. Sometimes that's just the phrase, you just got to suck up and do it. Have either of you been having problems with, because another thing that is very common for people when they're dealing with chaos and the world is a mess right now, is the doom scrolling. Do either of you have challenges with that? Because I know I do.
Oh yeah.
My doom scrolling happens in the middle of the night. My doom scrolling is I've woken up after 4 hours of sleep and I pick up my phone and doom scroll. But less during the day, thankfully. I've curated my feeds to be a happy place as much as I can.
See, for me, it's my challenge is part of my job is to be on social media.
Yep.
So it's hard to step away. And so then it's like, oh, I'm just popping in to do this one post or just do this one thing. And then you lose 2 hours.
Yeah, so I actually, back when I was working as the communications director for the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America, because my entire job was to be on social media, I developed some things that I'm still getting over, because it was inevitable that if I was not paying attention, something happened. And then I was getting messages on Facebook of, what is this thing? I'm like, I don't know, I was gone for 5 minutes, I'm so sorry. Right. So I've gotten really bad about that. I'm getting better. One of the things that is really useful for me is to have other things that I enjoy doing that are not computer-based. So, especially this year, because the temptation is to just sit in front of your computer all the time and to never go away, and that really does lend itself to doom scrolling. I have garden work that I like doing. I've gotten started painting. I have the things with my dog or with my partner. And so it's more, now I'll find myself doom scrolling. I'm like, oh crap, I have all these things I want to do. I need to get those done so that I can go do something that I want to do offline. And I'm lucky that my job is flexible, so if I'm just really spaced out or really having trouble, staying off of social media, I can go take a nap for half an hour. I can go outside and I can disconnect. And that to me has been really the salvation, especially recently. But I have no pedestal to stand on, because being involved with the protests, being on social media has also been a huge thing. So over the summer, it pretty much was 24/7, like 5 or 6 hours when I was asleep, and that was the only time I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, I wasn't sure you were getting any sleep at times this summer.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, Susan, thank you for your service, but I was starting to get worried that you were not sleeping.
There may have been a couple of nights in a row that I was up until 7 a.m. because, of course, I would stay up late to try and get freelance stuff done when it was quiet, and then Seattle police would start something early in the morning, and then I'd be like, well, I guess I'm awake now until I start the day job. Yay!
There were a few days where I was like, Jaym just signed off. Oh, no, she's back. It wasn't very long. Yeah.
Yeah, trying to edit a 168,000 word core book in a week while also dealing with the special activities of a city that is having some chaos within itself is not a thing I recommend.
This is why I think the two of you are super women. I really do. I know what I'm carrying, and you guys are carrying so much more. I am in awe of the two of you.
I'm just a masochist.
We work in the game industry. Doesn't that describe all of us?
Some of us to higher degrees than others, apparently.
Yes. So I think the creative mode is probably the biggest challenge for me to engage. I can like do some spreadsheets, or whatever. I can input, payments from company X and mark stuff paid, and but yeah, sit down and try to write something creative, not a chance. I can engage my brain for about a paragraph's worth, and that's bringing blood from a stone. It just it's like my creative brain is offline at the moment. Now I am fortunate that I don't have to engage my creative brain as part of my job. I am, like I said, I'm doing ops now. So I think the challenge that maybe a bunch of people at Metatopia are probably also facing is that creative challenge. And since you guys both do a little more creative work, how do you approach those challenges?
Brains are weird. And I have some friends who are actually, because they're forced to be home and everything else, are being incredibly creative, and I kind of envy them in this period. I have done no creative work on my RPG development because I just haven't had it during this period. And then the universe dropped into my brain a party game that can be played over Discord or Zoom or whatever. So creativity is strange.
Yeah.
Um,
Inspiration comes from all over, even at the worst times.
exactly. So what for the past couple weeks, my day job has been like 60 hours plus. So that game hasn't gotten much attention just due to, circumstances. But that is where my creativity's been going into for that, because I just figure, hey, the universe gave me this gift, I'm going to take it. But if I had a writing assignment right now, I can produce it because I originally worked in newspapers. So I can always write. I just can't guarantee it'll be good. So, because there is to some degree a bit of a muscle with that, of that, yes, I can always produce writing, but like trying to create or polish new game rules and game mechanics, that creativity isn't working. This may not be my best prose, but that's just kind of a learned technique for me. James, how are you handling it?
Similarly, where I can do okay, I have an assignment, I need to get it done. It's the actual creative thing that has been escaping me. And the problem is that the last few years I just haven't been creative. I haven't been drawing. I haven't been writing any of my own stuff. And I've been struggling more and more with writing things for other people. And so I actually just, I had, a few weeks ago, had this, actually a couple months ago now, I guess, had this thing where I was like, you know what? I am not happy. I am really struggling with all of this. I have a full-time job now. I don't have to do all of this freelance. I don't have to hustle. And because for the better part of a decade, sorry, there's glass going and being handled behind me. For the better part of a decade, I had to hustle constantly. Like if I was at a convention, I was looking for new jobs. I was looking for new projects. If I was not at a convention, every minute that I wasn't working, I was, oh God, I'm losing money right now. I could be doing something for a client. I don't have to do that anymore. So I kind of set this deadline for myself of my birthday is November 1st. By November 1st, I am going to be done. No more freelance. I am going to take a break from it. I am going to just stop this. And I still have a couple of like small ongoing freelance things. And Green Ronin is more on the job side, so I don't count that. I still, do that. But these random contracts that I've been taking for editing or marketing or whatever, I don't take those now. If there's something I really want to do, I will take that. But I was done. And I lasted 4 days before I started outlining my own RPG, and it's like all of a sudden I can write again. I can do things again. So I'm really hoping that this actually allows me to get back to that, because sometimes you get so caught up in the just constant grind of, I have to do this. I have to constantly be thinking about this. Your brain doesn't have time to be creative.
Yeah, you literally have to make space under normal circumstances where I'm not having multiple giant projects for my day job on top of a pandemic and election and everything else. One of the best ways for me, if I'm just like normal stressed, or whatever.
Right.
What
do we remember what that is even anymore?
Yeah, we're resetting our
normal
calibration.
stress.
Yeah, we're resetting our calibrations for all of this. It kind of worries me. But is to switch gears, to do something either mindless or a completely different type of creative. So if I'm stuck on how to solve the problem in this story or setting or wherever is that I'm writing, do some gardening, do some cleaning, because while I'm physically doing that, like the brain works in the background, or doing doing a jigsaw puzzle, just doing something else, can
Chris
distract and
Pramus,
shift.
my partner in love, was he used to be like the champion of going to take a nap and waking up with the answer to a problem. It drove me crazy. First, that he could just go take a nap at any time, and then that he had the nerve to just wake up with the problem solved. So if that is your talent, please use it. I am super jealous of that talent.
I have friends who have that skill. I don't necessarily do it from sleeping. Like I said, I do it from doing something else mindless. But yeah, if you can do that, that's amazing, because to me, that's easier.
Road trips for me are a really, really good way to kick my brain free. That's one of the challenges of this year, is that usually I drive down to California by myself a couple of times a year, and there's just something about 14 to 16 hours on the road by myself that all of the things that are kind of churning in the front of my brain go away, and then I just start working on these things that, I don't usually have the time for. And so I miss doing that this year. My goal next year is to take a really epic road trip, so we'll see.
Now, has gardening, though, substitute for that for you?
No, because it helps with being able to get rid of frustration and physical stress. But I'm still, a part of the problem, I think, is because I'm actually doing a lot of transformation of the space that we have. So I'm using my brain a lot, and it's not something that I've done much previously. Like, I used to do it when I was a kid, but it's been a while. I'm in a new climate. So there's a lot of learning and a lot of thinking and planning that goes into it, that I don't necessarily just turn my brain off and dig into just working and not thinking.
So before we switch to a different aspect of this, we're roughly at the halfway mark. Marshall, do we have any questions or comments that we should address?
We do have one comment from DRC Punk mentioning that it's really useful to have the work that you need to get done in your eyesight if you're going to goof off instead. If you're sucked into online things, they say, I put my editing work in front of my eyes, so I'll drift to it and keep drifting back when I drift off.
That can work. I think half the battle with this stuff is you have to sort of know your patterns. Because when we were having the pre panel discussion, when Nicole was saying about how she thinks about being on the Eastern Front and that tells her that things aren't so bad. I said that would make me curl up in a little ball just sucking my thumb, because then I would start, because my brain would go to all the horrible things in the world and oh my God. So I wouldn't find it motivating. Whereas for me, I have to do sort of a combination of like, okay, it sucks. It could be worse, but I can't focus on that. I gotta just, get my ass in gear and get moving. So there is a little bit of what works for you. And if having that thing you have to deal with right in front of you works, great. I know I can stare at it and still not get it done.
Does it depend on how much guilt and regret you feel for not doing your work? Because that's a motivator. Oh, I feel guilty. I haven't picked that up yet. I'm sure it's a healthy motivator, but I'm recognizing it as a motivator.
I mean, it isn't. It isn't. I think it depends upon where I am in a self-destructive pattern, because guilt was a huge motivator. Well, not motivator, a huge aspect of me growing up. Like, I joked that if my family could have found a way to blame World War II on me, they would have. So, me punishing myself is a habit I'm trying to break. So guilting myself is not necessarily a good motivator, but it does work sometimes.
Jaym, you look amused by this turn.
Oh, my family is very much, my grandmother in particular, I'm very much the same way. So for me, trying to shame or guilt myself into it is not a good thing usually. What I have found is that I don't like having things sitting and taking up brain space. And so if I have a list of the things I need to do, I can say, okay, just going to go get this done. I like crossing things off my list. So having everything written out, and then, but also breaking it down into chunks. And like, maybe I don't want to edit an entire book in one day, so why don't I do 3 chapters instead? And, you know, if I do that, but I also, like, I binge work projects as much as I do anything else. And so there are days that I will just edit 1 book in a day. And again, I'm super lucky that my day job is fantastic, because there are days that I'll just do 12 hours there, so that the next day I can do 3 hours there and do 12 hours on something else. And, you know, as I'm saying this, I'm realizing that it probably does not sound particularly healthy, that I'm like, hey, I, you know, do 15-hour days, and that's great.
I wasn't going to say anything about it.
But I can also say that having specifically made myself take this week off, this is probably the only time in my life I will be able to make myself take a week off, because I'm freaking bored and I've got nothing done. And it's just, you know, it was great because this week I didn't have the spoons for it, but it's not going to happen very often. I don't like not doing things.
But that's where a lot of this comes down to. You have to know or try to discover your patterns, because it can be a source of anxiety if people are telling you, you know, oh, just take a break, just do this, just do this. But you've said many times that does not work for you.
Yeah, especially if I am really dealing with a lot of stuff, you know, that stress or grief or any of those things, I need to have things to do, because I know that I will get caught up in just focus on those things, and then I won't sleep, and then it churns and develops. So, you know, I've actually been super productive the last couple of years dealing with all of this stuff. It's not always on things that I wanted it to be. Like, I did not expect to spend the better part of a year of my life watching police brutality. And yet, you know, that turned out to be part of my life. So I was very productive at it, at least.
So is disassociation a challenge for either one of you?
Which kind of disassociation are we talking about? Because are we talking about the disassociating from the thing causing the harm, or the emotional type?
You pick. Dealer's choice.
I'm really good at emotional disassociation. Like, that is one of my superpowers.
I can vouch for that. I've seen it in action.
What about the other kind?
Yeah, no.
So I don't. Last Gen Con, the last in person at 2019, Shanna Germain did a keynote speech for them, and I meant to look this morning to see if it was online so that I could recommend people watch it, but I got distracted by news events and didn't do my homework. But I really found her keynote on to be helpful in some of the ways that we're talking about, where she's talking about being productive and creative and kind of setting up a ritual space almost. It really hit me like it's a ritual space. It's now I have put the teapot on and I've set up the playlist that I play while I'm working on this book, and I'm at the time she was like, and I go to this coffee shop. And I'm at that coffee shop with that playlist and my drink in front of me, and my brain says, okay, we've done this every day for however many days. This is work time, and it helps her turn over into that mental space. So I've been thinking about how to incorporate that into a COVID lifestyle where we're all stuck in our houses working. Well, maybe not all, but many of us. I certainly have been. Just me and my family 24/7 for months on end, which, considering I traveled 153 days last year, is a real difference to my former lifestyle. And so the idea of setting up kind of a ritual space, a kind of an acknowledgement of transitioning from I was cooking dinner and now I am at my desk and I am working, and they are separate spaces, even though they're not really separate because my kitchen's right on the other side of this monitor. But I did things like, you know, I set up my I turned my entire desk around. So I'm facing completely the opposite direction as my desk has been for the last 13 years, just to make that mental break. I now have a different space.
And that's a crucial thing for anybody working from home, which I've been violating all of those rules since COVID. But yeah, about, like physically change clothes maybe at the end of the workday. So you signal the end of a workday, because otherwise it can feel like you're just never stopping work, which has been one of my stresses because I haven't been stopping work.
I set it up so that at the end of my day job, we do dinner. And then I have a little while that I can just do kind of whatever for, getting my brain settled, and then move back into freelance. And that helps me a lot. I also, I freelanced and did contract work for the better part of 10 years. So I'm used to this working from home thing. And a lot of it, really does boil down to, it does make a huge difference if you get dressed. Even if it's just like leggings and a tank top or whatever, it's still not pajamas. It's not a robe. It's not just the stuff that you feel really schlumpy and comfortable in. I am making an effort. I am putting myself together. I can deal with this. And then, later on, it makes it that much better when you can change into your comfy pajamas or whatever. And just having that differentiation, I don't watch, unless I'm having a really crappy day, I don't watch videos when I'm working. I'll watch those in the evenings. I binge cooking shows and baking shows. I'll do that at night. I'll listen to music during the day, or if I'm working on a really big deadline, I'll listen to music because I know I can't focus, if I'm writing or editing and watching a movie. So having those little things helps quite a bit. Having little rituals, like in the morning, I toast whatever morning happens to be, I toast a bagel and make a cup of tea and come sit down at my desk and check emails. That's my morning routine. And having those things really does help.
Now, another aspect of trying to, get work done when the world is chaos is, besides the fact that, it's stress on us and a distraction and everything else, it also takes a toll on our moods, even when we don't necessarily always realize it. So we may think we're coping fine, and our temper has become hair trigger.
I know nothing about that.
I was going to say, how do both of you handle that? Because both,
I think it's screeds on Facebook. That's how I handle it. Come on, let's be real.
For me, it's going out in the garden. Just getting away from stuff, and if it's raining or something, I can't go out in the garden, I'll go out in the garage. I have crafts and physical stuff with my hands that I do, and that switches me from one kind of pattern to another and helps me refocus. I also have an extremely emotionally sensitive dog.
You. Yep.
And there she goes.
Okay.
Well, we can vouch because we have seen the evidence on social media of your sweet, emotionally needy dog.
Sif is
Can you guys
adorable.
hear me now?
Yes, we
I
can.
can hear you.
Discord just rebooted, apparently.
That's what it was doing to me, and for why I switched machines right before this started. So
I cannot believe that I am the person in this panel having the least amount of trouble. This is like, I'm notorious for my anti-technology aura.
No, as long as Discord's involved, and I'm around, you'll never be the most. Anyways, yes, Sif is very emotional, and therefore, hi, I know, I said your name.
Yeah.
There were just these two glowing eyes looking at me from around the corner where her bed is. But, I can't get too emotionally whatever, because she'll get upset, so
she's forcing you to regulate. Because I know I sometimes have a problem with, I don't realize I'm being sharp with people. And evidently to everybody else, it's like demon came out of my mouth, so
apparently I'm really intimidating, Beth. Yeah, I'm like, oh, I had no idea I was being intimidating. I'm really, really sorry. I just swear like a sailor all the time. It doesn't actually mean anything.
Now, wait a minute. Fucking swearing does not fucking mean that for hell, that
Right.
you're being intimidated.
Watching my language this entire time.
I have one of our great team people bought me a replica swear jar from dang it
Big Bang Theory.
no, but we're real close. Yeah. Marvel.
Oh, Captain America.
I have a swear jar, and the swear jar. Yeah. This is my. I lose words all the time. It's so embarrassing. It contributes a lot to my social anxiety, actually. So I have a swear jar, and the swear jar was set aside. Not for fucking cursing, but for bringing filthy corporate language like action items and synergy bonuses and that kind of language into our happy little anarchist company.
And
So,
then she hired a bunch of rather more corporately minded younger people who then nuked the swear jar.
my millennials absolutely refused to play along. They just were like, "Nope, we're using it."
Well, because we kept trying to actually like talk business, and we kept getting swear jar, and they're like, "Fuck this."
Yeah, yeah. Bless my millennials. They whipped me into shape.
No, we still can't use synergy. That's still not allowed
No.
from anyone, not even from the millennials.
I was growing up, I always knew what the corporate trends were because all of a sudden my mom would start using these new words like a few times. And it's like, oh dear God. Yeah, and it would be like every other sentence would have whatever the trend was. Okay, so they taught something about that at work. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Stupidest thing in the world.
Yeah, and one of the weird benefits of being young and female in this beloved industry for so long is that I have had so many call outs. Like if I show any emotion or any temper or anything else, I get called on it. Usually by a guy who, 5 minutes before has been screaming at someone. So it's, I take it with a grain of salt, but it has made me extremely aware of my tone, whether in speaking or in typing of my face. I actually got kind of notorious for a while at conventions where my face would be perfectly poker faced as long as you didn't look at my eyes. And finally I figured out how to make those, poker face too. But it is a benefit of now I have near perfect control over, all aspects of my communication, which can be very useful when you're in a giant meeting with, the executives of your company and they come up with a really great idea and you're just like, yep, sure, that's a great idea.
Your game face is ironclad. I am super jealous. I've never had one. I don't expect I will be developing one at this stage in my life, but we all play to our strengths. So
see, I could get one in writing because at one point I worked in compliance. So I had to have the skill of writing the thing that said, listen, you dumbass, without saying,
yep.
Listen, you dumbass.
I reached a new
myself as I just say, listen, dumbass. So
I reached a new milestone of professional aggression this week when I said, as I have said in several previous emails, and then bolded the section that I had said in previous emails. I'm like, I have never used bold per my last email. Listen.
Some people just need it. I mean, what can you do? So when none of the coping techniques work, when it's the emotionally shit has hit the fan and you just can't push through, so you kind of have to deal with whatever the thing is for the time being so you can get back to the work. How do you handle that? What's your methods or techniques for, okay, I just have to face this shit, or I just have to deal with the emotional breakdown or whatever it is at the moment? Okay.
For me, it's just, I've been doing that for a really long time. I've never really had the option not to. Again, one of those weird benefits of growing up in an emotionally abusive environment is I can shut down. Like the ironclad poker face isn't just me not showing my thoughts on my face. It's I can have perfect control of myself. We had an extremely traumatic event earlier this year, and it was one of those things where I experienced it. I had 2 minutes, and then I immediately clicked into I am now in control. I am on top of everything. I will deal with this later, and was able to go and deal with and resolve issues for other people. And a background of crisis response and communications and all of these different things, having animals where, I've dealt with horses my entire life. There's a meme that goes around of we keep having emergencies and it's never my turn to panic. And that's for me, it's never my turn to panic. So I don't. And there are times when it doesn't matter how tired you are, you just push through. And I don't have any coping mechanisms for that. And I've been told sometimes that I'm not human because of it, but I just do it. I can break down after.
My thing, I was going to say,
go ahead.
Yeah, real fast is that the minute I say, like, I keep trying to push through, and then the minute I say, okay, I can't push through anymore, I have to fucking deal with this. So I'll just break down for how long I have to break down. That automatically, for some weird reason, for my brain, limits the breakdown time. Like, I will then set aside, like, in the afternoon too, I'm just going to cry my eyes out, whatever, and usually then I'm okay in a half an hour. So, yeah.
Giving
weird.
yourself permission to feel is a big deal.
Yeah.
I have permission to feel this is a big deal. I started trying to deal with my social anxiety a few years ago, which is why I can even be on a stream like this, because even this was really challenging for me. And I sort of am looking at these things in the same way. It's a different kind of breakdown, social anxiety, but it's there's a lot of fake it. There's a lot of like go through the motion of the thing to get to the other side of it. Otherwise, I had a period where I didn't leave my bed for a month because I was pretty convinced that my world was over. That was not a healthy response to that crisis, but it's the one that I was able to maintain. I didn't go do anything more drastic than staying in bed for a month, and that was a win. Like, you literally have to count. That was a win. And then, okay, so I didn't get all of the things done today, but I did put on pants. Put on pants. Did it?
Some days putting on the pants is the win.
So
you just have to celebrate.
I literally decided to pick up an affectation of wearing dresses when I left the house. Because I work at home, and even before crisis, I'm a homebody. I like to be alone. It's totally fine with me. So I was in the house by myself all the time. And then when I would go out to try to do things that I really legitimately wanted to accomplish, I was having lots of anxiety about doing it. So I put on my outside costume. I put on my outside costume of I'm going to wear earrings and a dress and makeup. I'm not super huge on makeup, but I was wearing a lot of lipstick at the time. That kind of thing, whatever it is, I put on the costume of accomplishment, and just that part of it gives me permission. Like, that's a recognition of an accommodation. We're accommodating ourselves, right? We have this emotional baggage or load or whatever it is that is keeping us from accomplishing the thing that we need to, and we're accommodating that in the same way we would accommodate any of our other challenges to reaching the finish line. So
I mean, Neil Gaiman has talked extensively about his social anxiety and shyness, and one of the things that he talked about was getting an acting coach. And so for me, early on, I did very much the same thing. And, I was really lucky. I had a great mentor when I was starting out. And I was very much the jeans and t-shirt sort of person. And she's like, no, you are representing this organization now. yes, everyone else around you is in Hawaiian shirts and these ripped jeans and t-shirts and stuff. So come on, science fiction writers are not like, we either have Carmen Maria Machado in her ball gowns, or you have the vast majority of them in the beat up jeans. But my mentor was like, you need to dress the part, you need to dress well. And so I get a lot of crap now because I do dress. I wear heels to Gen Con, like heels and big jewelry and full makeup, really nice dresses, and so I stick out. But for me, it's armor. I step into my outside persona, and it's not that different from my inside persona, except that it has the ability to deal with people, and it means that when I get home, I can just take it off or back to my room or whatever. And I used to have these breakdowns every day when I was at a convention where I would just be so overwhelmed and overloaded that I'd go back to my room and just curl up in a ball. And I don't do that anymore because I can step in and out of that, outside persona as I need to.
That's a great technique.
Any last minute questions?
Yeah, I was going to say, Marshall, do we have any questions?
Yeah, I have one question here for you. From Kettle and Clock, a bit of a specific question, but Jaym, when you're not hyper-focused, do you have techniques to get work done anyway?
I have music that I use. Music is a really good key for me. If I'm really having trouble focusing, I will write down every single thing I need to do. Like, I don't care if it's something as simple as answer an email. I will list out every email that I need to answer, every small thing that I need to write, because as I start doing those tiny little tasks, it starts building up and getting me on track. And sometimes I will, on days that I know I'm going to have trouble focusing, I'll go and do all those little things because it just gives me things that I can check off, and that sense of accomplishment helps start getting some momentum going.
That's an awesome tip.
Yeah. Any other questions, Marshall?
You have 2 comments if you'd like them.
Sure.
Craig Maloney 242 says, I think giving yourself permission to not have to be feeling at 100% when working is a huge help. Even saying, quote, this is going to suck, can take some pressure off of it having to be awesome while you're not really feeling it. And then DRC Punk says, very true about giving oneself permission to work at and not feel great about it. There are days I describe as slogging through molasses and am generally assured that that's okay. It happens.
Yeah,
and give yourself permission for your work on those days to not be your best too. You can always come back and revise. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Nicole.
No, it was Jaym.
We've gotten into this idea as a society of utter positivity. Everything is awesome all the time, no matter what. And it's not healthy. And, we have days that suck, especially in the creative world where so many of us are prone to various forms of challenges, whether it's depression or anxiety or, the fact that we're trying to make a living at something that doesn't pay. All of these things, you can't be positive all the time. If you are shoving down a lot of stuff that's going to come back to bite you later. Or you're just denying some things, and that's different from being happy. But you have to admit that there are times that things are not going to be great and that things are going to suck. And if you can admit that and you can deal with that, that helps so much in keeping you healthy in the long term.
Absolutely.
Totally agree. Well.
I was going to say, I think we're almost at time.
We are.
So does anybody have anything they want to plug?
Check out Nasaba Press. We've got some really great fiction there. We just released an updated version of Joe Carricker's Sacred Band, which is an awesome queer superhero story. I'm very proud of it.
I'm going to be on another panel in like an hour with Ken Haidt and Darren Watts and Jim Crocker to talk about game terminology and what it all means. So that should be good fun. Hope
nice.
People
so that's
come by.
Starts at 9?
Yes.
Well, okay. Sorry, I'm going. Sorry about that. I forgot you're on the other coast. Sorry.
It's okay. Yes. Oh. So at 9.
Cool. Have to check that out. Oh, and also too, I'm doing a panel tomorrow at 5:30 Eastern time on marketing your game store or game cafe or anything else physical, because normally me and my work partner do the marketing panels for like game designers and stuff, and it's like, well, since we're virtual this year, let's do it for physical game spaces. So they need all the help they can get.
All right. Well, thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for organizing it.
I was going to say thank you for coming to play, and thank everybody who is watching this and attending. And you guys are just awesome.